Welcome, Cyndee, to the conversations on collective well-being. How are you?
Fine, thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us how your work is related to well-being?
Well, Linda, my name is Cyndee Landrum. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Library Services at the Institute of Museum and Library Services in Washington, D.C. We are the primary source of federal funding for the nation's museums and libraries. And in relation to well-being, as a part of our primary work, we do support the museums and libraries work around well-being. But we also have supported some special initiatives in this area. First, our Community Catalyst Initiative, which we began in 2016, which worked with two cohorts of museum and library grantees to participate in some asset-based community development projects and capacity building. And then in 2021, we released a report understanding museum and libraries, social well-being impacts of museums and libraries.
Interesting.
Which essentially was a research project that we commissioned with the Reinvestment Fund that looked at the relationship between museum and libraries and social well-being. And it also included 24 case studies of museums and libraries and their work in that area.
Wow.
It's available online on the IMLS website if anyone would like to take a look at it.
I would love to take a look at it, and I hope those viewing will also do that as well. So we have heard from several stakeholders that there's an appetite for relationship building, developing frameworks and technologies, and shared spaces to practice leadership for collective well-being. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the types of leadership insights, skills, and development that we need to see to advance collective well-being?
So, Linda, I think that, under this sort of large umbrella of like transformational leadership, from the theoretical perspective, I think there's a lot for particularly museums and libraries and others in this work to learn. And, if we want to drill down a little bit into that space, there's servant leadership, there's adaptive leadership that, was advanced by Ron Heifetz at Harvard. And I think one of the things he talks about that I think is super important in this collective well-being space is this idea of getting on the balcony and seeing in the case of, for example, community well-being, and for museums and libraries specifically, seeing the entirety of the community, understanding the opportunities and the obstacles to better understand where a museum or a library might contribute and in what ways to advance social well-being and community well-being in their communities. I think the other thing is to be intentional in that work. I think there is I don't say a notion, but, yes, museums and libraries can, just by the work that they do, have an impact on social well-being. However, when they are intentional, and I think the case studies in our report demonstrate this, is when we really can speak to a strong relationship between the work that a museum or library does with its partners and the type of positive impact it can have in various areas of well-being, whether that's health equity, whether that's literacy, whether that's economic development.
Thank you for that. And you just touched on a very key thing. And I noticed that you highlighted it when you got to it. You said when the library and its partners. And so you're touching on the notion of network building for collective well-being. Why is it so important? Why is it so important to build networks as we talk about collective well-being and moving it forward?
Well, obviously, well-being is something that we all want. We want it for ourselves, we want it for others, we want it in our communities, but it's also very complicated. And, it's not something that one institution can, do alone. And, when we have a network, we can leverage all the assets of the community to contribute to whatever the opportunity is, and sometimes just the obstacle, to really move the community forward. Sometimes I'm from the library world, so I will use the library as an example. There are a multitude of roles for a library to play in the well-being space. Sometimes, the trusted nature of libraries allows us to be a convener where we maybe bring all of the partners and assets together in the community to solve a problem. Sometimes the role of the library might just be to be the space, the trusted space, where community can come together for, to improve civic dialogue and, civic engagement. So there are many, many ways in which a community can leverage its assets and to really move forward and support the well-being of the entire community.
Thank you so much, Cyndee. You've really given us some key gems here. And one that is sticking out to me is, if you're a trusted space, take advantage of that to move the well-being work forward. Remember that you may have a multitude of roles. I like how you say that you can have a multitude of roles, and looking at that, and that partnerships and each partner brings its own assets as we look to shift and transform how we work and how we lead in the collective well-being space. Thank you so much. I so appreciate your time, and I hope those who watch this video gain some stuff from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Thanks for having me.